Hello, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to be together and to bring some inspiration from our Parsha into our practice as we sit into Shabbat. And so this week's Parsha is Mishpatim. And we find the Israelites standing at Sinai receiving the Torah in this Parsha. In the final section, it says, Vaikach Sefer Habrit, Vaikra Ba'azni Ha'am. And so Moses took the book of the covenant and he read it out within the hearing of the people. Vayomru kol asher dibar Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. And they said, all that God has spoken, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. We will do and we will listen. Why this curious order? We will do and we will listen. Shouldn't it be we will listen to this divine command and then we will do and then we will act on it? Why does it say we will do first and then we will listen? There is a midrash in the Talmud that when the Israelites called out Na'aseh v'nishma together in one voice, the voice of God spoke aloud. Who revealed this secret to my children, the secret of Na'aseh v'nishma? This is the language of the ministering angels. So what exactly does Na'aseh v'nishma mean? We will do and we will hear. Why is this compared to angelic behavior? The Hasidic master, the Me'or Einayim, reinterprets each word as he expounds on this verse. Na'aseh, he says, we will do, refers to avodah, to holy service. And nishma doesn't just mean we will hear or we will listen. It means we will understand. As in the story of Joseph meeting his brothers, when he understands their language. It says, Ki shomea Yosef, he understood. So na'aseh v'nishma, we will do holy service, spiritual work, and then we will understand. And of course, often in our lives, we think that understanding actually must precede our doing, right? We want to understand how something works. We want that clarity. We want to know the proof and the data and the benefits, and then we'll try it, and then we'll act. But often it's actually the case that we need to do first. We need to act first in order to understand the value of something. And I think that mindfulness practice is a perfect example of this. Its benefit, its value is not something that can be understood by the mind, right? We can read about it, we can talk about it all that we want, we can look at all the data, but it must be experienced to truly be understood, which really requires of us a basic trust, a basic openness simply to begin. And part of that is the acknowledgement that our understanding is limited, that it's based on past experiences. So we can't comprehend the full totality of a given situation. We always have more to learn. And yet, there are other sources of knowledge that we can tap into beyond the intellect, beyond that understanding. There is intuitive knowing, the knowing of the body, like gut knowing, when you really know something in your gut. Everything in nature effortlessly knows how to be itself, right? The trees know how to root down and stretch up towards the sun. The flowers know how to bloom and rebloom in their season. And so what if we too effortlessly know how to be ourselves? Rav Abraham Isaac Cook taught that perhaps this is what is meant in this comparison to angels in the Midrash, that the people possessed an intuitive knowing, a kind of spiritual knowing like angels, and this is what prompted their doing. And I believe that this is something that we can cultivate, this intuitive knowing that something is good to do, and this basic trust, this basic openness to it, which will lead to our understanding. Our Parsha hints that this intuitive knowing is something that lives in the body. Na'aseh, we will do, comes from the same root as asiya, the world of action, of physicality, of doing. This world is the foundation of our experience. This is the place where everything begins, where all of our work must be done. And so in a way, we can understand this to mean the body will lead our action and the mind will follow. And perhaps the understanding in the mind that is truly worthwhile must emerge from our embodied experience, from our direct experience. The Maggid of Metric taught that sod, like a secret, this kind of secretive dimension of our experience, does not mean esoteric, does not mean something that is too mystical for anyone to comprehend, but actually the meaning of sod, of that secret, is just that it's experiential. So it can't, or it's not meant to be expressed in words. It must be felt in the body. And finally, we read in the Talmud on this verse in the Torah that when the Israelites gave precedence to we will do over we will understand, 600,000 ministering angels came and set 2 crowns upon each person in Israel, one as a reward for we will do, and the other as a reward for we will understand or we will listen. We will do, we will act, and we will understand. Both of these are holy. But our understanding must be grounded in some way in our doing, in our body, in our embodied and intuitive knowing, in our direct experience. And so this is the inspiration and the invitation for our practice today. Na'aseh v'nishma. Can we let the body lead? Does the body in some way already know how to meet this moment? And what is the understanding that can emerge from that direct encounter, from that embodied experience? And so I invite you to settle into your body, finding a posture that is conducive to mindful presence. Inviting a sense of relaxation, softening any tension you might be holding. Feeling the feet on the ground, perhaps your hands in your lap, and you can soften your gaze or close your eyes. Relaxing into that basic trust, that basic openness that is required simply to begin. And sensing as well the uprightness in the spine, the wakefulness. We're not here to zone out, but to awaken to our experience. To be awake to our lives. And just allowing the mind to settle in the breath, in the body. Into the present moment. And can we let the body lead us into practice? Is there some way in which the body already knows how to meet this moment with love, with presence? Is there a place deep within that's quieter than the mind? That knows how to be, how to meet this moment with awareness, with wisdom, with love. Perhaps noticing the thinking mind, thoughts arising. No problem. The mind doesn't have to understand. As we return again and again to the body, to this avodah, this spiritual practice of being in the present moment. Directly knowing the truth of this experience as it emerges. With kindness. Noticing the thinking mind and simply returning to the body. What does the body know? Noticing the thinking mind and returning again to the body, to awareness of the body from within. Fully inhabiting this very moment. Directly knowing what is here, what we can perceive through the senses. Practicing returning to this presence again and again, with gentleness, with care. And from this place, grounded in our embodied direct experience, we nishma, we can listen. As we wrap up our avodah, our practice together, I invite you to take 5 deep breaths. Really savor each one. And you can gently open your eyes if they've been closed. Perhaps allowing the eyes to wander around your space. Noticing what is here, what's present within you, around you. Thank you so much for your presence and your practice. May our practice support us each in cultivating our intuitive knowing and trust in that the wisdom of the body, that we can let our bodies and our intuition lead the way, the Shabbat and beyond. Thank you.
Beautiful, Rebecca. Thank you so much. Friends, we seal the practice, move into Shabbat by offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or observing Yahrzeit, or if it's your practice to join in the Mourner's Kaddish, to do so. If you are not reciting Kaddish, we invite you just to stay present and to offer your loving presence and support for those who are. If you're reciting Kaddish, you're invited to put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat box, either now or after we recite Kaddish. Thanks to Kat for sharing the words on the screen. And if you are reciting Kaddish, inviting you to rise in body or in spirit with me and recite the words together, and you can unmute at this time. Yid Gadal, Kadash Rabba,
Amen.
Amen. And friends, of course, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to our teacher for today, Rebecca Schisler, for filling in so beautifully. And so really lovely to have these Fridays to join in together to prepare for Shabbat. Thanks to Kat Esposito for holding our space as always. And thanks so much to Jonathan File for sponsoring our practice today, in loving memory of his parents, Morris and Phyllis File, and his sister, Susan Eleanor File. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Just a reminder before those of you who are leave, that on Monday we will not be meeting live in observance of President's Day here in the States. We will be meeting, nor will there be yoga on Monday, but we will be meeting Tuesday through Friday next week. And I believe, pretty sure on Tuesday, Sarah Waxman from At the Well, who leads us every month on or in proximity to Rosh Chodesh will lead us in practice for Rosh Chodesh Adar as we enter into the season of Simcha, of joy. Looking ahead in the month, I guess in 2 weeks, second week in March, which is the week of Purim, Rebecca is going to be leading us in our next week-long series, which will be on the theme of playfulness and joy, cultivating playfulness and joy. So that's really something to look forward to. So that's in 2 weeks. And if you're leaving us, want to wish you a sweet and restorative Shabbat. And if you're staying on, you're welcome to just continue to use this time to sit with us and to use this container for your practice. If you have a question for Rebecca about the beautiful teaching for today, really, please put it in the chat box. We'll keep an eye on it. And let's see, there's already a question. Okay. I'm going to come back to this question in a second, Lori's question. Rebecca, I really love the flow. It was kind of a flow based on that, fairly famous passage, right, of Na'aseh Nishma, that I got of this intuitive knowing grounded in the body that leads to action, which in turn leads to deeper understanding. There's a lot to unpack there. And maybe we can even just focus on the first part of that, because that was really the focus of the practice, right? It was on awareness of the body and this whole concept that the body knows in some way, right? It's not the kind of knowing that people are used to thinking about. So I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit about this, that whole idea. Of course, it's also a popular concept. That best-selling book, The Body Keeps the Score. There's like a much more awareness these days about that there's a lot of wisdom in our bodies. So I want to invite you to say a little bit more about, like, what do you mean by intuiting, and how do we discern that in our body? Like, what's the actual process for that before we even get to the Na'aseh Nishma? What are we observing? What are we witnessing in practice in terms of observing and experiencing intuition grounded in the body? That's really the question, I guess.
It's such an important question. And I want to begin by acknowledging that in my experience, both in my personal life and in my experience as an educator, especially working with children and working in schools, I just want to acknowledge that, and even colleges, whatever, I don't think we live in a culture that really encourages us to listen to our bodies and to learn how to listen to our bodies and to take what our bodies might be saying to us seriously. Or that like really values and trusts those gut feelings and really what feels good in the body. So I want to just acknowledge that from the outset, because I think that whenever we're doing this work of like awakening in the realm of the body, I know this is true for myself. Many of us have been on tremendous journeys, healing journeys with the body. People might experience pain in the body, sometimes chronic pain, or really be on very serious healing journeys. And that just feels important to acknowledge. And so it's really an invitation to bring a tremendous amount of compassion to the practice of really learning to speak the language of the body and, welcoming whatever it is that we find there. And there might be a lot of emotion as well. So it's not about feeling good in the body, but it's about really getting curious about what is happening with the body and what might the body be saying to us. They talk about gut feelings and gut instincts. And I think this is because when we have these like moments of real intuitive knowing, it's something that can be felt in the body. It's sometimes quite subtle. And so it's really something to like explore and experiment with. right? But there are even like little exercises you can do that I think can be really interesting. Like if you're having trouble making a decision or something. So you can say, okay, well, this hand is going to mean yes, this hand is going to be no. Ask yourself the question, immediately, like what's the instinct? And that's just something to explore and to get curious about. Like, what does the body know here, actually, instinctively, intuitively, that the mind might be having trouble grasping? So I think ways of just kind of accessing, listening to, and just becoming curious about the body's instincts can be a good way in. I know for myself, sometimes it feels like the body is speaking to me in very subtle ways around like what is a right choice for me or a right decision. And sometimes it's not so subtle at all. I've had experiences also of getting like really, really sick after ignoring my body. I remember one time I broke my foot and I just wouldn't stay off of it. I like kept going to work for weeks and weeks and weeks until finally it became a huge problem. And I was kind of off of it for like 3 months. You know, it started really subtle. It was like a little injury and then it just grew and grew and grew. And, you know, yeah, the body can speak to us in quiet ways and also in very loud ways. But I think what's important is that we are getting into more of a practice of really listening. And part of that I think is really important is trusting what feels good. Trusting what feels good, trusting what creates a sense of openness, a sense of relaxation, a sense of ease, a sense of loveliness in the body. And when there's tension and when there's constriction, getting curious about that too, because the body has its own wisdom. And so I think part of our practice is just opening to the possibility of the intelligence that lives within the body, and then noticing what happens in our lives when we start to take that seriously and trust those signals and signs.
Yeah. There's so much to really still like, there's a lot to unpack here. Two things. One is like, there's the example you gave of, where there's a decision to be made, right? Where we're kind of consulting with the body, right? So like, what have you got, what's your take on this, right? And whether, and there's this like knowing that option, yeah, it may, rationally that sounds like the right thing to do, but something is telling me no, right? My body is telling me no, or the other way around, right? But if we're just sitting here, say if we don't have a decision to make, there isn't like something to figure out. We're just in the process of practicing, noticing what's happening in the body. Can you take us through, like what actually we're being invited to do in order to do that? Like, I don't have a decision to make right now, but at a random moment, I want to say like, what is my, what's the Torah of my body saying right now? Like, how do I do that? How do I go about that? I mean, would it be like would you suggest like a body scan of just like bringing awareness up? Let's sort of take an MRI of the body right now, right? Spiritual MRI, and see what's happening here. Is it like that?
Yeah, so a body scan is a wonderful practice to begin to cultivate mindfulness of the body. That's a practice in which you start perhaps at the top of the head or at the bottom of the feet, and then kind of just scan through the body, going through each body part to see if you can awaken awareness within that body part. There's a term used often in mindfulness called interoception, which is the ability to actually sense the body from within itself. And we can even try that, all of us right now in this moment. Do you have a sense of your body, the sensations of your body from within your body?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to emphasize that this is really something to cultivate over time. And it might be that if we've never really done these practices before, that we don't feel much of anything at all. But when we keep at it, especially, with longer durations of mindfulness practice, it can be amazing to start to notice, oh my God, there actually is some sensation there. I actually do feel some aliveness there in my left big toe, or here in my chest, things that maybe we have never noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
And so beginning to awaken those sensations, and again, to get curious about them, right? Because it's very common that we feel a sensation maybe a very pleasant one. Often this happens, I think, with unpleasant ones, and we immediately make a story about it. We immediately say, this is what this means, whether it's about a decision or maybe a health issue or whatever it is. And so in the practice of mindfulness of body, we want to be aware of that tendency to make up stories and just get curious about that too. Really, so it's not making assumptions about what anything means, but just bringing curiosity and inquiring.
Right. So there's no agenda necessarily, not figuring it out. It is the practice of witnessing, substituting curiosity for, oh, this means, oh, my chest is constricted. I must be angry. What am I angry about? Or whatever it might be. That's a good, Diana, that's a good start. The other thing that came up for me, and I'm not an expert in this, but there is, maybe probably you know something about this as well. In Jewish mysticism, without getting into the weeds about this, there's understanding of different levels of soul, right? One of which is nefesh, which is our quote unquote animal soul, which maybe is most closely linked to this intuition of the body, the soul that knows or that is connected to the divine in some way. And that just, for me, adds this other spiritual element that I'm not just doing a body scan here, actually. Actually checking out my soul. There's these different facets of the soul, one of which is the body is ensouled. And also it gives us a little framework for Shabbat as well, that Shabbat is a time set aside for remembering that they're not separate things, that the body is housing the soul, and we can actually experience the energy of the soul in the body that has its own wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shabbat, part of our primary instruction, Shabbat vayinafash, cease and pause, vayinafash. It's often translated as, to be refreshed or renewed, but it's nefesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's nefesh. So it's like your nefesh, your embodied soul should be refreshed and renewed. So I think that has so much to do with the invitation to really relax, to physically rest, to physically, to have delight, right? We meal, we wash our hands, we light the fire. It's also elemental, and also sensorial.
Right. And the pleasure aspect of that too, right? The pleasure of delight of good food and, the ambiance, and of the physical pleasure of rest, of, not having to do. Yeah. This is
the body loves pleasure. And so I really want to encourage everyone on the week long for Purim, we're going to be exploring really the skillful means of pleasure and joy and these delightful experiences in the body to actually cultivate our mindfulness, to cultivate our presence. So
really, really looking forward to it. And also hopefully laugh a little bit too.
Big time.
Okay. All right. So we're very much looking forward to that. That's a good teaser. And we're at quarter after the hour. So let's close here. Just wish everybody a sweet and restorative and ensouling Shabbat for everyone. And Rebecca, thank you so much for on short notice, stepping up with this very, really such a powerful, beautiful teaching. Thanks, Jonathan, for sponsoring us today, and Kat for holding our space. And above all of you for showing up and your incredible dedication to this community of practice. And just a reminder, we won't see you on Monday, but hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday with Sarah Waxman to move into the new month of Adar. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.